When You Are Old, William Butler Yeats. When you are old and gray and full of sleep, and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read, and dream of the soft look your eyes had once, and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace, and loved your beauty with love false or true. But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you, and loved the sorrows of your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur, a little sadly, how love fled, and paced upon the mountains overhead, and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. Yeah, there's a lot of feeling in this poem. Obviously, Yeats is a master poet. So he wrote this in 1891, and he was born in 1865. So some quick math tells us that he was 26 when he wrote this poem. And that fact alone, I was just kind of like, I suck. Because I write sometimes. But when I was 26, I think about where my head was and what I was doing. And Yeats is writing this poem. I mean, they made him different back then. I'll say that. It's the first line that really grabs me and sucks me in. Just because that's kind of the mood I've been in lately. It's just this nostalgic, kind of like, I don't know, in a transitional period. So it's like wondering about the future and dreaming or wishing for the good things that were in my past. And so that line grabs me. When you are old and gray and full of sleep. And that description, or that, I guess it could be like an adjectival phrase, full of sleep, to describe a person. It's just it's a lovely way to put it, because it kind of seems that way sometimes. Like, you get the feeling of being full of sleep. You can watch somebody, especially old people, when they get tired, it's almost like they kind of look like a sack of sand or a sack of something, because you get all like, you're full of sleep, and it's just like it overtakes you, and it just like makes you go. Nodding by the fire is kind of a continuation of that. And so we know he's talking to somebody. You are old and gray and full of sleep, and nodding by the fire. Take down this book and slowly read, and dream of the soft look your eyes had once. So he's asking his reader, the speaker in the poem, is asking his reader to think about themselves, because we don't really know, if you're just reading it with no knowledge, you don't really know who he's talking to yet. So him or her. Asking him or her to think of themselves when they were younger. Dream of the soft look your eyes had once, and of their shadows deep. And so I don't really know what that means, in all honesty. Dream of the soft look your eyes had once, and of their shadows deep. So dream deeply of the shadows that your soft eyes, or the soft look that your eyes had once. So like the shadows of the soft look that her eyes had, his or her eyes had. I'm just going to say her because it's confusing me, and I don't have patience for that right now. So then the question is it, what's deep modifying? Is is it talking about the shadows? The shadows are deep, or is he asking her to dream deeply? I don't know. But I think maybe I'm starting to understand that phrase. So maybe he's saying, dream of the shadows that your eyes had, meaning that like the shadows cast with your eyes, like, so a shadow is blocking out the light, or a shadow is the light being blocked out by the form of something. So could he be meaning that when someone is caught in her gaze, namely probably him, that he sees nothing else because he's in the shadow of something bigger than himself? Maybe. I mean, that sounds reasonable. That's probably not right, but, you know, makes me sound smart. So, okay, so then moving on to the second stanza. How many loved your moments of glad grace? I love this stanza, by the way. How many loved your moments of glad grace? Of course, it's easy to love someone when they're being happy and guffawing. And loved your beauty with love false or true. So either we're infatuated with your beauty, or infatuated with you because of your beauty, or loved your beauty for beauty's sake and maybe not loved you. One of those two things, because like her beauty is something that she has, and so it's not her. It's something that is hers, but doesn't comprise her. Loved your beauty with love false or true. So how do you truly love her beauty? By recognizing, by being true to the object of your affection, right? Because if you are infatuated with somebody, you'd say all the things, oh, I love you, I love everything about you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, none of that's true. So they're replacing the object with, they're ascribing an emotion or a feeling or an attachment to an object which isn't what they're actually being drawn to, right? So that's false love. The true love would be to recognize that what I love about you is that you are beautiful. And that is when I profess when I'm professing love of something, I love your beauty. I love the fact that you are beautiful. That would be a true love of her beauty. And so there probably were plenty of people like that for her. Both. I mean, yeah, we're just going to assume because the speaker is telling us that happened. So anyway, that was way too much time on that little line. But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face. So he's saying, implying that it's him, right? That's what the implication is there. But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face. It's easy to love someone when they're happy and joyful and passing out drinks left and right. It's not so easy to love someone when they are sorrowful or despondent, because it can cause you the same feelings to see the one you love be in that state, and maybe even you grow resentful of that thing or that effect. And so it's not so easy to keep your love true when what you love makes you sad. And so he's the only one that thinks that he was able to do that with her. The sorrows of your changing face. And I mean, that could be a pretty long metaphor, pretty big metaphor, or have a different meaning. Could have multiple different meanings to him, It can have multiple different meanings in the poem too. But I think it's more interesting to recognize that Yeats probably meant something, or the speaker probably means something when he says that, or means many things when he says that we'll not be able to understand. But we'll be able to understand that it happens because we'll have gone through it too, maybe. But we won't ever really know what it meant to Yeats. And I think that's the beauty of this poem, is that like you see that, or you feel like you've felt all these things, or you know what he's talking about because you've experienced them. But I think it's important to remember that, like, yeah, he's saying all that. He's saying these things because he lived it. But the thing that you lived and the thing that he lived isn't the same. And it's interesting to me to recognize that and to think about the things that the speaker meant by it, rather than think about the things that it means to me, or analyze the way it means, or analyze or feel things about what it means to me. Like when I'm doing an analysis of a poem, or when I'm really digging into a poem, that's the kind of stuff I think about. So the other, I skipped the third line because the third line is probably the toughest in this stanza in terms of understanding what he means or meant, because he uses this phrase, pilgrim soul. Like, that could mean a lot of different things, like objectively, I guess. Like, we understand changing face, the sorrows of your changing face, like that's got a pretty specific objective meaning or explicit meaning, but you know, we can recognize that maybe he's got specific things in mind. But pilgrim soul has multiple objective meanings, I think, or multiple explicit meanings, because you think of pilgrim, like who were the pilgrims? They came over on the Mayflower. I hope I got that right. I might not, because that's a period of history that I don't really know. I don't really know anything about a lot of history. So, pilgrim soul. So that could, like, when I first read this, I felt like when he says pilgrim soul, he means her adventurous soul, right? Pilgrims. They came over on the Mayflower. They took this great, long, heroic journey, this voyage across the sea. And so it seems like adventurous. It seems like brave. It seems all of these great things that are like, I don't know, open, open and chaotic. But when I was reading it today, I kind of contrasted it with the first line. So if you look at the fourth and the second lines, he says in the second line, loved your beauty with love false or true. And then the fourth line is loved the sorrows of your changing face. So you could say, or you could make the comparison that sorrow is the opposite of beauty, or it's at least a contrast to beauty. Sorrow can be beautiful in a certain context, or like thinking about it in a certain way, but we generally, like, imagine yourself just like after having bawled your eyes out for an hour, like you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, I'm so ugly. Right? Because that's what it does. You get all puffy and red, and it's like bloodshot, and like everything is smeared if you're wearing makeup. So it's like, we don't generally think of that as a beautiful sight. So I contrast the third line, the pilgrim soul, with the first line. How many loved your moments of glad grace? Like, the way I thought of that initially was like, glad grace is like, passing out money, passing out drinks, having a good old time, laughing it up, a night out on the town, whatever. And so I thought, maybe he means pilgrim soul as in like how they were when they got here. Or even if you reconsider the voyage and don't think of it as an adventurous thing, because Like, practically, it's probably not that adventurous. It's probably not that romantic. It's probably like, 100 people in a boat with no toilet. I mean, other than the ocean. But, like, you get what I mean. No shower, at least. No freshwater shower. Like, that's going to get stanky, right? You got to have some grit to withstand that voyage. And then when you get here to a land you know nothing about, or maybe like you don't have a plan other than figure it out when you get here. It's not like you can send an email to your cousins who live in the New World and say, "Hey, do you have a room for me?" It's like, they're there. You're just going to go, or maybe you don't know anybody. You're just going to go and figure it out. Like, that's hard work. And so maybe he is talking about that part of her, the part of her that is steadfast, I guess, and unwilling to quit and hardy. And then that transitions, I think, ultimately, maybe after the initial break-in period, after building your house and domesticating your animals. Once you've got kind of a routine going, the pilgrim soul might also be just like, he might just mean, I love that you're a homebody, that you don't chase materialistic things. You don't, that you just want to be by the fire with a book, and that's enough for you, kind of thing. Maybe something like that. The simple soul, life's simple pleasures, that kind of thing. So that was I just kind of had that thought today when I was reading it. Because that feels more like a stir the oatmeal kind of love, a long-lasting love, that you love just being at home with somebody. Okay, so that's the second stanza. Am I doing on time? Oh, God, 17 minutes. Okay. I'm taking way too long on that first and second stanza. Really, the third stanza, I don't really have a lot to say about. There's probably a lot of meaning packed in there, but I think bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled. So he's capitalized love. And so he's personifying an emotion. Normally we say my love or, and we mean the person, but he might mean something more timeless, I guess. Maybe after the person is gone, because she's old and gray and full of sleep, there's not going to be another love for her, right? And so maybe it's not just the person that leaves when he leaves, but it's also the potential for the feeling. A little sadly, murmur a little sadly. I don't know how he means that, because you could say he might be saying it like, I don't know why he would put that in there. Maybe it's like, be sad when I'm gone? Yeah, you're going to be sad, right? Like, murmur a little sadly. Murmur, comma, a little sadly? Even? Don't rejoice too much when this old man's passed away and you don't have to deal with all my questions and my hard of hearing and all of the stuff that all the practical things about living with another person that can really just rub you the wrong way. I don't know. Don't rejoice too much when all those things are gone. And murmur is kind of like a murmur. So it's like, yeah, maybe that's what he means by that. Bending down beside the glowing bars. You'd think that that's just a description of like how he imagines her kind of stoking the fire. Maybe it's something that he used to do for her, and now she has to do for herself. And she's probably quite capable of doing it because she has a pilgrim soul, right? But it's probably just a reminder of his absence to her. Maybe he's recognizing that. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled, and paced upon the mountains overhead, and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. So obviously, like, he's talking about, maybe not obviously, but what I think he's talking about is like heaven, or, the place beyond, whatever. The crowd of stars seems like, the night sky. We generally think of that as like heaven-ish, cosmos kind of thing. And hid his face amid a crowd of stars, become one with all eternity. That's the feeling I get from that. But paced upon the mountains overhead. Maybe he didn't want to go. Maybe he's lost because he's an old man. He's trying to find his way. Like, where is this frickin' place? I could see that. That'd be funny. Like, this whole thing is got like two meanings, at least to me. As I'm talking about it, is like, if she reads it, it's more likely that she'll read it with like with the closeness. And paced upon the mountains overhead. Well, of course you're pacing around up there. You don't know where the hell you're going, And hid his face amid a crowd of stars. And that could be something funny too. Like, maybe he was in trouble and didn't want to be found one day. And she came looking for him, and he was dodging in and out of the crowd. I don't know. I'm just being funny now. But ultimately, it's a very lovely poem. And it makes me sad. And happy at the same time.